And good day, and we're back with a new year. And as you guys can see, this is also a new set.
A new set.
Right? And you guys will also notice that we're under a new name.
A new name.
Right?
New branding.
New branding, new management, everything. Even I'm a new person as well.
Absolutely.
I'm not even like the same.
Totally rebuilt digital identity.
Completely. But anyways, so we are now called Clicks Over Coffee. For what that means, we are having coffee over the kind of things that we click on and having conversations about that stuff.
Yep.
Right? So to start off this new episode, we're gonna go over two topics. So a year in review for 2024, and then we're gonna talking about the TikTok ban and everything that was surrounding the ban, and that kind of give better context into TikTok, the situations with the U.S. government, and data privacy.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot I want to talk about with
governments and your data.
Governments and your data, right?
Yeah.
So to start off with 2024 year in review.
Yeah, some standout stories from 2024.
Standout stories. We kind of hit the ground running with the Cat Williams interview.
Listen,
right? that kind of opened up a big can of worms in terms of unveiling Hollywood. Which seemed to have had a whole knock-on effect because...
And not just Hollywood, like the dark side of celebrity.
The dark side of
celebrity. Which we saw as a theme running through, even to the end of the year.
Yeah.
End of the year.
Right? So with that, somehow it had, I said the Cat Williams interview had a knock-on effect of P. Diddy getting a whole RICO case by himself, by the way. By himself.
He did it all by himself.
He
did that all by himself.
1,000 bottles of baby oil. Who knows?
Wow.
Yeah.
Bad boys. What you gonna do when they come for you?
Right. Phrasing. Right. So
I said what I said.
Right. So I said Cat Williams interview P. Diddy, and then what else happened? Oh, the launch of Sora.
Sora, yeah,
right?
The AI video platform.
platform.
And like the year prior, AI video was remember Will Smith eating spaghetti, so that was a mess.
And it was very bad.
It was horrible. And then Sora launches this like
leaps and bounds better.
Yeah, we did a video on that. Actually.
Yeah,
we did a video talking about that, and it was just like crazy. And I was like, where will we be
in like 5 years from now and things like that?
Yeah,
there's pros and cons to it too. Like in terms of like maybe in there's going to be a world where you don't need to have a whole big set just to film a movie. Like you could put in some prompts, organize certain things, but like that's a whole other segue.
And then what does that do for the actors? Was the SAG strike this year or was it last year? I don't remember. The strike with the actors and the writers and that sort of stuff.
That was I think it ended.
It ended
last year.
I
think it ended last year.
It ended 2024.
It was because it was going on for I think since 2022, maybe even before that. But it was like I know it's from 2022
because it started with the writers, I think.
Yeah, it's a writers' strike.
Went into the actors supporting the writers.
Right. So it was between that 2022, 2024.
I feel like the launch of Sora had something was happening kind of concurrent because remember people were saying that actors now the rights to their likeness and that sort of thing, and extras like the lack of a need for extras. You film them once, you can AI produce them again.
Yeah.
And Sora kind of confirmed those. So maybe it was 2023, and then Sora kind of confirmed those fears.
Yeah.
And then you went into like open AI with the voice Sky, which was like all rip off of Scarlett Johansson's voice, even though Sam Altman denied it. But it was basically they said we're kind of shelving the Sky voice for now. But in tweets that he made reference to Scarlett Johansson, so it's clearly a thing.
Yeah, and even AI in the tech industry now, where people in the tech industry are having fears that AI is going to take their job as software developers, and even people that work with AI, as developers that work with AI, so that AI kind of helps them. Let's say they produce more, be more efficient, things like that, right?
And we talked about that in a video that we can link in the comments.
Yeah, we can link that
in the description that you can actually see.
Yeah,
more in-depth thoughts that we have.
So
on that.
there is the AI is a trending and evolving topic as the years goes along.
Mm-hmm.
I think something that we probably will have to revisit.
Correct.
A couple months later on,
because AI itself is evolving.
Right. Then you had the Boeing scandals and the
whole door blowing off of a door plug blowing off of an Alaska Airlines plane, and that led to a series of revelations.
Questionable thing. There's no way that many whistleblowers go in that sequence of events, but that's a whole other thing. What else happened here? Oh, Donald Trump getting shot.
Yeah, 2 assassination attempts on a presidential candidate. That's
crazy.
Wild.
Yeah. Made for one of the coolest photos that ever came out of
Ever.
2024.
One of the coolest and most buried photos of 2024.
Oh, buried?
Yes, it got buried by the media. I think the media covered it for a couple of days, and then you searching for it, you weren't finding it trending on browsers.
Oh, okay.
Media houses quickly moved over that story, which kind of leads to the whole idea of lack of trust in traditional and mainstream media,
right?
And the rise of podcasts and independent media.
Yeah, right. So what is anything else? Oh, I guess you could say coming on to the end.
Mm-hmm. The end.
It ends with us. Yeah,
it did not end with us. It ended with them. Let's be clear.
Them
it ended with them,
right?
But whew,
that whole scandal of Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, and that's still kind of going on to this day.
Yeah, it kind of like exploded at the end of the year last year.
Yeah, and if there's one thing I can say, you see the TikTok detectives. They know how to do their thing.
They're gonna come for you.
They
came for everybody. They had the receipts.
Yeah, I don't know his name, but the guy that I watched that had like a 4-part series talking about the whole situation, bro had a stack of paper. Like he had like thick. It's a thick documentation, right? And it was like, you can,
clear, right? This is Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni drama. That's gossip, pure and simple.
Yeah.
But I think the underlying aspect of it is how involved people were getting.
Yeah.
Which kind of to me seems like it was signaled by the lack of trust people had in the mainstream media to report the facts
properly, right? And then I would say so, like not just mainstream media, but like the disingenuous nature, or seemingly disingenuous nature of even celebrities. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Where we were talking about earlier, where Taylor Swift, who I think you had mentioned she said that she wasn't really involved in the situation.
She and Blake Lively are great friends, and she was like, I wasn't really involved.
But then you look at the facts, and they say like several situations where
that she's allegedly deeply involved in this whole thing.
Deeply involved in the whole situation, right? So it's like 2024 was kind of like a very big unveiling of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, like the unveiling of the dark side of celebrity.
Right.
And 2, you saw just the U.S. presidential election turning to, instead of traditional media for a lot of their interviews, turning to podcasts.
Yeah.
Like Donald Trump was on Joe Rogan. Kamala Harris was on the Call Her Daddy podcast. I don't know how you get the two of them together, but it was a weird thing. All of that happening, like turning to these non-traditional sources to get the word out there.
Yeah.
Like even it seems as though government was losing trust in the ability of the mainstream media to get their message across to a younger generation that it needed for votes.
Yeah.
It was interesting too that the U.S. government said that they would ban TikTok if it didn't sell, but the Biden campaign, before they turned it over to the Harris campaign, was big on TikTok to market. They created a TikTok account. So it was like, how are you doing this?
Yeah, so we're gonna dive into the whole thing about TikTok at a later part in this segment in this podcast. But I wanted to take a little bit step back on a more personal note.
Yeah.
Where amidst all those things that are happening, bringing it back down to earth, what are like some like little key takeaways that we had during the year just working as a company?
Yeah, I think learning how to parse information from clients, like digging through what they say to get to the heart of what's going on, and recognizing that over the last 2 to 3 years, people have gotten a lot more anxious. And I don't think based on the events of the last 2 to 3 years, that has gone away. So there's like a lot of anxiety in some requests that people bring, and sometimes people may not understand what they're asking for. And it's like no fault of theirs, because sometimes clients and designers, and I think we started the year kind of with this thought, like clients and designers speak different languages. And so it's about how can we best communicate to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Understanding that, a need for a client may be a little bit more immediate than you perceive it. And what's happening in their background that you may not be aware of can influence the request that they're asking and how they respond to what you send. So you're working into their context.
Yeah.
Understanding that. Also looking at really taking seriously the idea of diversifying how we work and what we do. diving into more content creation like we're doing now, like diversifying the types of thoughts we have, the approaches we take to doing work, making sure that we just don't allow our frustrations with how sometimes processes can go to take over.
Right, yeah, I think that was very important too. That's a little skill that I'm starting to learn to develop myself. Like, asking investigative questions and things like that. I would say, from my personal key takeaway from last year was learning to take your work seriously but not take it personally. You had mentioned that to me as well as, like, when you're dealing with clients. You have a particular vision as a designer, and you think, okay, this is going to work. It's good for all these different types of reasons. But the client has a different vision, different direction that they want to go, and it can be frustrating where you can see the flaws in what you perceived the flaws in their own plan, and your own, I would say, drive or passion to execute what you think is the best course of action, but they have their own thing that they want to go after, and they probably have their reasons for doing it. And it's like learning to be more accepting of the fact that, at the end of the day, the client has to get what they're looking for, and your job as a designer is to kind of like find a happy middle ground between what you think is best for the project and for the client and what they want, right? Yeah. So just learning to navigate that and learn to not let it frustrate you when it can.
Yeah, because you were mentioning about things that the client may perceive as wrong about how we see things, how we perceive something as wrong about the client sees,
and they
but
probably
then
do the same
they're
thing
probably looking at what we're doing
yeah.
and perceiving something as wrong from their end. So recognizing that, and punching through that.
Yeah. So, but all in all, I think it was a generally good year for us, I think, as well. So I think that wraps that up. Now, there's a lot to get
heavy
into.
lifting.
Yeah, the heavy lifting.
There's a research.
There's a lot to get into with this TikTok ban. There's a lot to get into leading up to the ban, all the stuff that was happening going up to the ban, and all the stuff that kind of happened after the ban.
And what we think the ban was really about.
Yeah, so I have my notes. So
see, we got notes.
Right. So let's see. Let me try to get through it all as quickly as possible. So for those that don't know, the U.S. government had banned TikTok. That was supposed to be enforced January 18th.
Yeah, 18th, 19th.
Right, 18th, 19th, right? And it was banned for a brief moment, but it came back. So, but a number of curious things happened leading up to the ban. Most notably, the kind of public discourse of, especially U.S. citizens and users on the app. Why are you so concerned about this app?
Yeah.
Right. Why of all the things all the issues that could be going on in the world, you're so concerned about TikTok, right? Especially when people are like in the US, or like in scenarios where they can't find employment, people are hungry, people are
gas prices are high.
Gas prices are high. But there's one thing you can all somehow agree on, get organized on, as this big issue that you're going to ban TikTok, right? That was the kind of general consensus. And at the time of when it was happening, I was on board as well. I was like, why do you care so much about this, right? Like the whole issue of it belonging to China, and then China potentially having links to the company that owns it, ByteDance, right? And that made an issue for the U.S. government, and which led to it being banned. But the particular ban was that the conditions of the ban was that they had 75 days.
Well, the extension is that they had 75
days to sell to U.S. to a U.S. partner. Right?
But if they didn't sell, then it would get banned.
Right. So that's the scenario. That's the scenario is in now. Now, so as I said, that the part of the discourse is why you were so concerned with TikTok. Now, getting closer up to the ban, users started to leave TikTok and find themselves on an app called Red Note,
which is named after Mao Zedong's notebook, by the way.
Yeah,
Mao Zedong's red notebook. So that's the thing.
Yeah. So Red Note is an actual Chinese app, by the way, right? It's an actual Chinese app, like there's literally even the UI is like written in Mandarin and
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff. So you were so concerned about TikTok with being connected to China, and then kind of try to legislate behavior around TikTok and banning TikTok, which kind of ended up you being in a worse situation where people were leaving a semi Chinese app to an actual Chinese app, right? So it's like it was a bit of irony in that scenario. It was a very bit of irony in that scenario. So that was kind of all the stuff that happening going up to the ban. But here's where things get interesting. Coming out of the ban. Now, I'll preface this by saying, I am not conclusive about what is the correct stance to have towards China.
Mm-hmm.
But the things I found out shifted my perspective from being, well, why is the U.S. government so concerned about China, to now, okay, wait, no, I kind of get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bring up the facts I learned. So ByteDance is a company that owns TikTok, right? ByteDance is a Chinese internet technology company headquartered in Haidian, Beijing, and is incorporated in the Cayman Islands. So coming a little bit close to home for us in the Caribbean.
Caribbean people come true.
Right?
Is Cayman Caribbean? Anyway.
Close
enough. We can
claim them, right? So they're incorporated in the Cayman Islands. So Chinese internet technology company. Now, TikTok is not accessible in mainland China. Instead, ByteDance provides to its users an app called Douyin, which is a similar application, but that app has to adhere to the strict censorship regulations of Beijing.
Wait, is that where the TikTok logo comes from?
Probably.
D and Doyen.
No. What's the X-Files sound?
I don't know.
Right, anyways. Right? So when I found out this little bit of information, is like it paints a very suspicious picture, right? Where you have a Chinese company, right? You have a Chinese company that I'm assuming they are headquartered in China. The app itself is not allowed in China, but you're owned by you're effectively adhering to Chinese law.
Yeah.
So then question kind of comes to mind is like, okay, so what is to stop China from pressuring you to access their data? Like what like for lack of a better word, you are a subset of Chinese reach or Chinese power, right?
Because that's the power of the government, and that's how different governments operate, which I think is the crux of the matter.
Yeah.
In the US, companies have a bit more legal recourse than individuals as well over data privacy, where the government can request data. And we've seen this with Apple, and when they had the Boston bombings, and the government asked Apple for information on the messages of the suspected bomber, and Apple's like, we can't give it to you.
Yeah.
One, there are laws that govern, we can't give it to you. And two, even if we gave you access,
it's encrypted.
The information's encrypted. It's on the phone. We don't have anything to give you. With China, it is different. Companies and individuals do not have that level of legal legislative recourse. The Chinese government asks for it, and they think in Red Note's policies and in DeepSeek's policies, the Chinese government asks for it, they give it hands down. There's no recourse. There's no resistance. And therein lies the issue.
Right.
So even though both are probably getting your information and requesting them and using it for whatever their purposes are, you have a little bit more control or recourse with the US government than you do with the Chinese government. I know the US government is the one that people love to hate, Big Brother, blah, 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 but give Jack his jacket, There's a little bit more data protection or ownership and autonomy of your data where they're concerned.
Right. So as I said, that's kind of where with that context is kind of what helped shift me from my perspective before the ban going into after the ban. Now let's talk about after the ban. So now with users on TikTok, they experienced something very a little bit strange about their For You page algorithms, right? Users were reporting on videos and whatnot that their For You page what felt different after the ban, after they came back, right?
Mhm.
Kind of like the fun, levity, and informative side of TikTok that they were so accustomed to, they found that was gone. Like that was that something had changed and things weren't the same as they used to be, and they found out some people are reporting that their TikTok pages only reset after they banned these specific accounts: Facebook, Instagram, Meta, and Amazon. I think Twitter was also one of them too, right? It reported For You pages now returning to normal after banning these.
After blocking the oligarchy, as people
the
were calling it,
oligarchy, right?
wow, that's interesting. So, can you ban them? Can you block them? Your page goes back to normal, and then unblock them, or do you have to leave them blocked?
I think you have to leave them blocked.
Interesting,
right? Because I myself experienced this a little bit when I was on TikTok for a little, and it wasn't like a conscious thought, but things did feel strange, right? It was like I was like, I'm not seeing as much, probably not seeing as much memes, or I'm not seeing as much like some like information news channels, like independent news channels that were coming up. I wasn't seeing any of that stuff, right? And I was like, and it felt like, this doesn't feel the same. Then I got a video explaining the whole situation. You have to block these accounts, and I actually did block them. And then things kind of did feel like they went back to normal, right? Which
it'd be interesting to see what would happen if you unblock them,
right? And I because it made me question. I was like, okay, is this an actual thing? Like, is this a genuine thing where like having these accounts be unblocked on your platform messes up your algorithm? Or is it just that maybe a couple people were experiencing this,
right?
And it became a trend, and you're kind of like this, that confirmation bias.
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I would have to like investigate if this is like an actual thing, right?
But it does raise questions over how our data is being used, how it's being protected, what data we surrender over to these platforms,
right? Because like, so in the whole discourse about data and data privacy, right? I want to take a little look into. I want to take a little look into the other offender of data and data privacy, Facebook, right, and Meta. So for those that don't know, back in March of 2018, there was something called the Cambridge Analytica crisis or scandal, right, where Facebook had a cache of documents inside Cambridge Analytica. A cache of documents that were inside Cambridge Analytica. They made its way into the hands of the New York Times. Right. These documents were proof that Stephen K. Bannon, a board member of Cambridge Analytica and a former Trump aide, had illegally obtained data from tens of millions of Facebook users and used it to create voter profiles.
No,
right?
I believe he was fired from the Trump administration.
He probably should have
faced jail time as well.
He probably did. We'll have to research that, right? So that's something you find out on. I guess you would say that may paint a more suspicious picture on the right wing side of things. But here's the thing: a couple of years later, in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, had repeatedly pressured teams in
at
Meta for months to censor certain COVID-19 content.
Can we say that word now online?
No one knows.
I'm not sure.
This might get bleeped.
Pandemic-related content.
Yeah, pandemic.
Say its name 3 times. Let's hope not.
Right. Right. So
can't do lockdown again.
Right. Exactly. Oh no, I definitely can't.
Too big for lockdown.
Right. So they were censoring certain COVID-19 content, anything from humor and satire or expressing like frustrations with the frustrations.
Simply asking questions.
Right. Simply asking questions. They were told to censor this kind of content, and Zuckerberg, he said it was their decision whether to take down the content, and they own their decisions. But I think he kind of expressed that he regretted doing this. That he said he believed the government pressure was wrong, and he regrets that he didn't take a much more outspoken and defensive stance at the time, right? So you see that from just on Facebook side, our data is not as protected or uncontested as we would like to hope, right? And so this is what we're happening with Facebook. And now to bring back the lens back to TikTok now and the bigger issue of data privacy, you kind of have to ask yourself the question is like, was the issue with the ban that TikTok was connected to China? Or is it that the US didn't have control over this data as well? Or is it a mix of both, right?
Yeah.
And the thing I kind of want to go further with is that are we currently in a war for data control, right? And are we basically casualties of this war for dominance over data and things like that?
There's certainly a tug of war on data, and companies on the company level and countries on the government level are really fighting over who controls and owns the most of the data. And I've said it before and I will say it again. If the service is free, the people are the product.
Yes.
And our data is really what companies are after.
Yeah, all these apps are pretty much designed to be data farming hubs.
Capture as much data as possible, as much data that's irrelevant to the service as possible.
Literally.
You remember Face App? Many years ago, the app that you could change your face to look like different cartoons. People downloaded that ad nauseum. And there are so many different variations of that. Like there's a AI voice changer. No, that's kind of making rounds on social media. All of these things just get created as opportunities for private companies or governments or an unholy mixture of both to get as much data and information on users as possible.
Yeah. And I kind of have to ask you kind of have to ask yourself the question is like, it seems like data is like now the most powerful thing you can own.
Yeah.
Right? The most powerful thing you can own.
Probably more important than oil and water.
More important thing like that. So it's like, what is it that they really want to do with this data? You have to ask yourself these questions. So you have to build up.
When you look at analysts, like analysis, data mining is important. Like people talk about big data. You know, you can make predictions. You can topple governments. You can sway industry.
Right.
You can control the stock market, like how people purchase products, etc., like by how you set up advertisements. And there was this one guy many years ago. There was a documentary called The Great Hack, and he sued Meta over his Facebook profile because he decided he wasn't comfortable with the amount of information they were gathering. He deactivated his Facebook profile. He wanted to delete it. And he wanted them to delete all his information off their servers. And they were like, nope, not terms of service says can't do it. And he sued Facebook over it. He was able to get his data, I believe. But what happens after that? Because he wanted to set a precedent that not just for him, but for future generations to have more control over how companies use their data.
Yeah. And as you said, it's like there's so much that something can be done with data. As I said, that even we were talking about earlier where like sometimes we would think about something and then like a day later or 2 days later
or the same day
we will see an ad for that same thing that we thought about, right? And then it's almost like it's comedic in the moment, but like it always gives this eerie sense of like, whoa, like how much are companies so advanced now in terms of data and predictions and like building profiles and like how you act, how you think, the behaviors that you take. Are they so advanced now that they've started to encroach on an area that you thought was just your own? You thought
was it really just an organic thought that you had?
Exactly.
Because if you the Social Dilemma documentary is on Netflix. I encourage anybody to watch it. Shows you how the companies, if you linger as you're scrolling on a post for too long on social media, I think it's 3 seconds or maybe even shorter than that, the app tracks your eye movement. And if you linger on it, they're like, they lingered. You don't even have to click on it. You just hovered over it. You get to see more and more of that.
Right.
Right? And they change what's coming next. And they slot in. Let's slot in a little bit more. Good. We got them. They can click on it. They know. And this sounds like conspiratorial, but it's 3 months to reality. They shape how you track things. So what you thought was an organic thought may not actually have been an organic thought.
Exactly.
We are being primed to make certain decisions and have certain thoughts and ideas where you may think I'm going to X place to buy XYZ, and just a generic idea. How much of that was the advertising that you saw? I mean, and it's the industry we're in, advertising and marketing.
Yeah.
So we design content, put it in places to guide people to make decisions.
Yeah.
Right? But that's obvious, because you're going to see the ad on the bus stop or on the digital billboard, or the sponsored ad comes up on your phone. You're like, okay, that's a sponsored ad. It is the things that you're not aware of that's the tricky part, that you don't know is a suggestion or an ad. Because even with TikTok, during the US election last year, it came out that campaigns were paying TikTok influencers to promote their candidate. But it was not being promoted that the people were being paid. So it would seem as though they were trying to buy the organic influence of that particular person to sell their idea or to disparage their candidate, but that was not being revealed to the audience.
Yeah, when I think about all these things, I think to myself, like Black Mirror, right? We look at you look at some things like Black Mirror or a series like Psychopaths, and think to yourself, oh, this is such a dystopian future.
Yeah,
and
this could never happen in reality.
But then look at these scenarios where governments are pressuring privately owned companies for their data, or not pressuring for pressure them to censor certain data, or data on users is getting leaked to give given access to people that shouldn't have it. And think to yourself, like, wait, how much, like, is the world more dystopian than we think it actually is, right?
Are we living in a digital dystopia,
right? And so in that light, I kind of want to, we talk about all these kind of issues that kind of crop up, these concerns, to put it to more proactive side, what do we actually do to live with this world that we're in? Like, we know companies are trying to farm our data as much as possible, right? What steps do we take to
kind of safeguard
ourselves? How do we navigate this digital world that we're in?
Well, short of becoming a digital hermit and living in the mountains,
yeah,
we can't get away from that. But I think it's important to recognize that we have to be mindful. We have to live with our eyes open and be mindful of how much of our data we choose to surrender to companies.
Right.
Knowing that they have a fair bit of it already. People make fun of me when I say that, for example, I don't use biometrics on my phone. I don't have fingerprint recognition on my devices. I don't use Face ID.
I want to bring that up as well, because I've seen series where somebody would they were need to get access to a phone.
Yeah,
and they would hold up to the person's face, right? I'm like, yo, if that made it into a series, somebody did that in real life. Because nobody came up with that just on a whim. Like your phone can be accessed with just Face ID, right?
And maybe if it's the person's dead, maybe not.
But I mean,
But
I'm just saying, it's like scenarios like that where you kind of have to think, you have to kind of really think about, okay, how accessible is my information?
Yeah, let them at least go fight me or torture me.
Exactly,
password, right? Don't come for me, please. I beg.
Yeah.
But don't make it so easy. You got to do is I'm shackled, and you just take my finger and plop it on my screen, and my phone opens.
Right.
Or hold the phone up to my face, and the phone. Be just careful about what we surrender.
Yeah.
Be more careful about. Like I tell people, I'm a late second stage adopter of new apps, new technology. I don't jump on the bandwagon when things launch immediately. It's like, okay, it launched. Let's see how it goes. Let's see what happens. What's the potential backlash? What is the potential issues or errors that could occur with this thing? Let me not be too quick.
Yeah.
No, maybe not be the last, but don't be the first.
Don't be the first. Yeah.
And see how that goes. And that, I think, has served me well over the years. Like when ChatGPT first came out, I was like, No, we use ChatGPT in a light way. We found a way to use it and not just jump on board because of the hype.
Yeah.
Don't follow the hype.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Like, just don't follow the hype.
Yeah, and because even like, you know, between two of us, like we've always had like you be the skeptic, I be the kind of guy that's kind of like, all right, wait, whatever,
Mhm.
right? And because my stance was like, look, they already have everything. What more could they possibly take, right?
Yeah.
Right. But just with this process of researching this topic about TikTok and everything like that, I've started to develop a lot more skepticism about apps, who controls them, where like who has access to them, even so, to the point where I was excited about DeepSeek. I was like, oh, it's free and things like that. It was like giving power back to people. Then I was like, it is Chinese owned. I'm not saying that in the sense that we should take this anti-China approach, but I was like, given all these issues that I'm seeing towards data privacy, I felt more comfortable deleting the app than I did keeping it. Because I was like, let me wait till I see what happens first.
Yeah.
If nothing happens, like say like a year down from now or 2 years down from now, and it's like proven itself to be safe app to use, then sure.
Then maybe. And I think that stems to the fact that we're like 12 years apart. I'm millennial, you're Gen Z. And millennials are very similar to the boomers and the generation maybe before them in that someone born, for example, this is probably the generation before the boomers, someone did what they call the greatest generation. They would have come up, like born in the late 1800s, they would have seen the introduction of air travel. They would have seen the introduction of cars. They would have seen a man go to the moon.
Yeah.
And many of them, if they lived long enough, they would have seen the introduction of the internet.
All
in one generation.
And those are all very different timelines to be a part
Massive
of.
jumps.
Massive jumps.
In my life, I've seen the introduction of computers, the introduction of the internet, the introduction of social media, the introduction of mobile phones, the introduction of AI.
Yeah. And I was, when I was young, so I was I guess a generation that was young enough to experience life without cell phones, without the internet being a big thing. But still, I grew up alongside these technologies, right? And when I think to myself, from the time I was 4 years old, in like cell phones were not a big thing, smart TVs was a big thing. We had like one computer in the house, right? And so I went from that as a kid to now 20 something years later, and the way we interact in the world is completely different than it was 20 years ago. And that's just 20 years. If we really think about the span of like how much has changed in 20 years, that's crazy, and that's a lot to adapt to.
Yeah, and I think digital literacy is very important because our generation was, we were introduced to the apps and we were taught about like security on the internet, security with their phone, security this, security that, security with the computer. There was a lot of push to be secure and a lot of teaching us about the things. Your generation came up and it was taken for granted. It exists, use it.
Yes, literally.
We were like, it exists, here's what you need to do, blah, 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 safeguard, safeguard, safeguard. And no fault of you guys, it was just like when you came along, it was run of the mill.
Yeah,
so
it's just like normal. It's just
normal.
Part of,
So no one gave that guidance. It's like, you should just know.
Yeah.
And I think digital literacy is very, very important in how people can safeguard themselves and how people can approach these things, because your data is your digital identity.
Yeah.
The same way you will protect your ID card, your passport, your personal documents, your bank account, it's probably the same way you should be protecting your data.
Very, very much so. I want to conclude by opening up this kind of topic to you guys in the comments, and you guys wherever you're watching. What is your stance on the TikTok ban, data privacy, the kind of like the effects of our data just being potentially at the hands and the whims of like the U.S. government, the Chinese government, or whoever else,
private companies,
right? Whoever else wants to access it, and then even certain actions, like what actions do you take to kind of safeguard yourself in this digital world that we have to navigate?
Or are you just like, you know what, whatever,
forget
it?
Like, what's your perspectives? Please let us know in the comments. And if there are any topics that you want us to cover in another podcast episode, or you want us to do like a deep dive on this particular topic,
Because
like
he did a lot of research.
yeah, right. There's a lot I did to talk about, but if there's anything you want us to kind of go further in on, let us know, and we'll get to it in the future. Get to it in a future video. But
Till then,
yeah.
like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
Find us on YouTube.
Yeah.
And Instagram, Clicks Over Coffee.
Clicks Over Coffee.
And until next time.
Have a good day.